The four of us were just hyperventilating as if we just ran an ultra marathon. I was starting to settle down when Jason said, "Look at the window."
Nightmare Files.
This story happened to my brother, and it's told from his perspective. On Halloween of 2017, I went trick-or-treating with my friends who all called Harvey, Michael, and Daniel. We were all around 14 to 15 years old, and really just wanted to make the most of Halloween, as we had so much homework starting the 10th grade, and we probably would never be able to trick-or-treat again. Anyway, we were all walking down this random street at like 9:30. When we saw one house with insane over-the-top Halloween decorations that looked like it cost up to about $500. The four of us walked up to the house and rang the bell. Some 50-year-old looking man opened the door and said, "No need to yell. Just come on in and you'll get your sweets." Daniel told the guy, asked the guy, "Can you just bring the candy out here?" The guy didn't even answer. And so the four of us just walked away, not saying a single word. But of course, this story wouldn't be scary if it didn't end here. We were walking down my street when Harvey pointed out, "Guys, that man is following us." We all looked out behind us and saw the same 50-year-old looking man walking about 25 feet behind us. The four of us bolted all the way to the house. We ran to my house, we thrust open the front door, entered my house, and locked the door. The four of us were just hyperventilating as if we just ran an ultra marathon. I was starting to settle down when Jason said, "Look at the window." We all looked, and there he was, the old man looking through one of my windows. My parents were on a vacation, and my brother was at his friend's Halloween party, so we couldn't tell them. But what really made this horrifying was that I could see this guy holding a gun in his hand. I yelled at my friends, and we ran upstairs to call the police. The officers arrived in about 10 minutes. The man wasn't on my property anymore, but we remembered the house, so that's where we went. The cops went there, searched the whole place, and came out with the man in chains. It turned out the house was vacant, and the man was a serial killer who escaped from prison a month ago. If my friends and I are able to go trick-or-treating again, we're avoiding the street that this house was on. And who knows what that guy was really going to do if we went in. I'm glad this happened when we were teenagers and not when we were 9 years old. All I can say is if you're trick-or-treating, make sure that the house owner is completely normal. It was my 11th birthday on March 2nd, 2012. I was a big fan of Selena Gomez, and I wanted one of her CDs for the radio my grandpa had bought me a few months prior. Anyways, my grandpa took my sister and I to Target after he got out of work to buy me a Selena Gomez CD I've been begging for. At this time, Target in my area had a small food court with a snack bar with Pizza Hut in it, which I always got when I went shopping there. My grandpa and sister and I, we all ordered our miniature pizzas, the personal pans. Then we sat down at the table with our food, which happened to be right by the register. After the worker gave us our pizzas, they headed to the back to clean up, I assume. So it was just my grandpa, my sister, and I in the food court. Everything was good for about 5 to 10 minutes while we were eating. But then I noticed my grandpa, who was sitting across from my sister and I, look behind me. He moved his eyes side to side as if he was watching somebody. I, with my heart racing because I was so confused, turned around, and that's when I seen the most disgusting and creepy looking man I've ever seen in my life. He was tall, maybe about 6'2" to 6'4". He was partially bald, had dirty stained clothes, and he smelled like pee. He was right behind me, going back and forth, eyeing my grandpa. And that's when my grandpa started to yell at the guy, telling him to get away. My grandpa then stood up and said, "If you don't get away from my granddaughters, I'm going to make you get away." And that's when the guy backed up and he just stared. My sister and I then got up and we quickly rushed over to the other side of the table where my grandpa was. We started to walk away, and that's when I heard the guy say, "You're very beautiful. Where are you from? You must be from the islands like Fiji or something like that." I turned around and he was looking straight at me. Then he pointed and said, "Yeah, you pretty girl." That's when my eyes got wide, and my grandpa rushed my sister and I down the aisle to get away from this guy. He was following right behind us, saying his name, along with his address, telling me that I could come visit him sometime. My grandpa kept a hold of my sister and I, making us go down different aisles to lose him. When we finally did, we quickly purchased the CD and went out to the car. When we got into the car, my grandpa was driving out of the parking lot, and we saw the guy walk out of the store looking around like he was looking for us, or specifically looking for me. He didn't see us, as we were already driving away. But I was completely terrified because that was something I've never experienced in my life before. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but I seen that guy one more time after that. 2 years later, when I was 13, again, I was with my grandpa, but it was just him and I. We were leaving my grandparents' house, and we got into the car to head to the mall. As we were at the end of our street, we seen the guy again, walking down the street. I stared at him wide-eyed, and we made eye contact, which made my heart drop in fear. He then immediately started to scream as soon as he saw me, and tried to run after the car as my grandpa drove off, but of course he didn't catch us. Later on, when we got back to my grandparents' house, I had found out there was an insane asylum right down the street from my grandparents' house at the time, which is where we believed he lived, since the address he gave matched the address to the place. I'm 19 now, and I never saw that guy after the last time when I was 13. And I'm really glad I didn't, because he was seriously ill. This story happened to me about 8 years ago when I was in the second grade. I was around 6 or 7 years old at the time, and I wasn't really popular with the other second graders. I was always the odd one out with about 1 to 3 friends, or sometimes less. This meant I was usually on my own after and during school. This one incident happened at the end of the day when everyone was starting to go home. What I would do is, I would wait inside the gate of my school until I saw my mom's car pull up. Then I would walk over to her car and she would take me home. On this day though, this car that looked exactly like my mom's pulled up in front of the school. So I walked up to it and almost opened the door. But then I saw the driver and realized that it wasn't my mom's car at all. There was a bald, Hispanic looking man inside the car. Average height with jeans on, with a brown tank top, who appeared to be in his mid-30s. He saw me and apologized for almost getting into his car and started walking back to the school when he said, "Hey, I can take you home if you want." I said no thank you and that my mom would come soon, but he just didn't let up. He kept insisting that I go with him, but I said no over and over again. He also said that he notices that my mom usually shows up late, so he must have been watching me for a while. Eventually, he just got so fed up, he just decided to reach out of his car window and grab me. I don't know why, but for some reason, I didn't cry or scream. I just sort of silently freaked out and started scratching the man's arm. The moment I drew blood, he gave up, let go, and drove off. I never told anyone about the man for some reason. I really don't know why. When I finally told my mom about this story a few days ago, she said I could have saved some other poor child from potentially being kidnapped, molested, or killed had I spoken up. And now I feel terrible. Needless to say, I never saw him again after that. My mind kinda repressed this memory for the longest time, until I just remembered it recently. And now that it's fresh in my mind, I can't stop thinking about it, and what he could have done to me had I gotten his car. And I always wonder, how long he was actually watching me.
Nightmare Files.